Agents of change. What a powerful premise for an event like this. And I know that I'm standing probably in front of some very distinguished people who are committed to really applaudable things, and I'm humbled to be here. And I asked myself, why am I here? I'm just a filmmaker. You know, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I'm not a psychiatrist, a therapist, a counselor. I'm a storyteller. And, you know, it's fascinating to me that I'm standing here. And in order for you to understand why, I need to take you on a small journey in 14 minutes over the past 4 years. So, I've worked for Ken Burns, I like to say, ever since the Civil War. It still gets a laugh. It makes me feel so good. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I started with him in 1991, 2 weeks after the Civil War aired. And I've worked on films with him. You can see how many. And Ken taught me some incredible things while I worked with him. He taught me his mantra, and I've stolen it to be my own. And that is, history is the story of human emotion. And then he also reminds you that history has the word story in it. And that's kind of, if you've seen any of Ken Burns' films, you can see, like the Sullivan-Ballou letter in the Civil War film, where a soldier's writing home to his wife 2 days before he goes into battle, where he loses his life. It's all about that vicarious connection over time. And, you know, I like to call my ongoing work with Ken what I've learned. I call it the Ken Burns formula. It's almost like a mathematical equation in my head, which is so funny to me. I almost think I could write it out and it would make sense. And really, it's just, he just imbued me with the ability to tell stories and to focus on the human emotion. So here we are with our current film. And what is it? It's called Hiding in Plain Sight, Youth Mental Illness. It's 4 hours long, broken into 2 two-hour episodes. The first episode is called The Storm. The second episode is called Resilience. Basically, the film brings you through the lives of these 23 young people and gives you the opportunity to hear through their own words what they've endured, what they've experienced, what they were traumatized by, but also their successes and their hopes for the future. This film aired in June 27th of last year, and it spread like wildfire. We had instantly in the first 3 weeks over 7 million viewers, and it was streaming and broadcast, and it was being talked about a lot. We were incredibly amazed at the momentum. But at the same time, my brother, who's a co-director, and I said, why? Why is this happening? And I think that gets to the filmmaking process. Documentary filmmaking is a process of discovery. When we start a film, I typically know nothing about the topic, nothing whatsoever. So in this case, when I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, I was never taught anything, not a thing about mental health. But I did know something about mental illness. I knew it was in my family, as my brother did. I knew it was toxic. I knew it hurt. I knew there were emotional struggles. I was a very private, lonely boy growing up, and I never knew why. So I do know something about it, but I've never had the opportunity to really understand it. So when we got to this film, we said, how are we going to start doing this? So naturally, we went to the professionals. I mean, that's what you got to do, right? You got to talk to the professionals who know a thing or two about the topic. So we did. We interviewed first Patrick Kennedy of the Kennedys. He's a leading mental health advocate in the country. We talked to Thomas Insel, who was the former head of the National Institute of Mental Health. We talked to Dr. Nora Volkoff, a neuroscientist. We also talked to Sarah Vinson, Dr. Sarah Vinson, a psychiatrist in Georgia, child psychiatrist. And these people were amazingly helpful. They brought us insight into a mental health crisis that is occurring in this country. And this is back in 2019. However, my brother and I still realized that we were not getting to the source of the matter, the young people. That was the film we were asked to make on the youth in America and the mental health crisis. So we said, okay, we need to stop filming the professionals and start filming the youth of America. But how? The interview process was difficult, but surprisingly organic. We found these people through psychiatrists, through therapists, through counselors, through social workers, very organically. From the people who I like to say work up at the 30,000-foot view, the scientists and the administrators who sit in offices doing very important work, but they're not on the front lines, so to speak, with the therapists and the counselors. And the interview process itself is what informed us about how we were going to make this film and what we were trying to accomplish. And this is, I think, the crux of why I'm here today. The process starts with me sitting down and talking with them on camera. And when they started, they were very shy. They were nervous. They held back. But at the end of the interview, almost 2 hours later, they were exuberant. They were joyous. And they were at peace. They shared very little at the beginning. But by the end of the interview, they were telling me that they actually told me things they've never told their parents, never told their friends, never told anyone. And here they know that this is a film that's going to be shown on national TV. Why? I asked myself. They also shared the same kind of story progression. Usually their stories started in childhood, whether they had a perfectly good childhood and a genetic disposition that caused something, or whether they had trauma. Most often they had trauma, or some kind of experience, whether it was with parents, family, outside of that, or at school, being bullied, anything like that. That helped us make the construct of this film. And we realized that our young people were actually experts of, we say they're experts of their own experience. They are the experts. Our mental health care professionals who were in the film really were support team. They were context to help provide insight and valuable information and education about these young people. So the next task was trying to weave 23 stories together. Very, very difficult thing to do when, as a filmmaker, I don't want you to be confused. I don't want you to get lost and say, who's that? And I don't remember what happened to them last. So after 3 long years through a pandemic, we started in 2019, we finally got to the end, and we discovered that there was an inherent power in storytelling that could inform a relatively uninformed audience. And asking the question, how are our nation's youth doing today? So as I said, the film spread like wildfire. Just making sure I have the right slide. Thank you. The film spread like wildfire. It was incredible for us. I started the promotional tour on June 1st. The film was going to air on June 27th and 28th. I came home October 20th, having been home a total of 8 days. Why? Because the film changed everything for us. When we air a film, it usually marks the end of a long creative journey. But this film marked the beginning of something we had no idea. We started attending conventions, conferences, symposiums, summits, events, conventions of the Supreme State Court Justices of the entire United States, as well as a convention of all the United States lieutenant governors. We've spoken and did events with the Teachers Union, Mental Health America, and many, many countless others. Even the First Lady at the White House heard about our film. And one of the greatest moments of my life was the fact that she invited us and our cast, our young people, to attend a screening and a private event at the White House. And that was the first time all of these people came together, all of these young people, and it was like they knew each other. It brought tears to my eyes. They had all seen the film, and they felt like they knew them. Surprisingly, before the film aired, we received the prestigious Mental Health America Award for media. And then not too long after, we were awarded the Isidore Rosenfeld Award for influencing public impact. Public opinion. And the amount of viewers are just growing every day. Most importantly, I think, was the praise that we did not expect from the medical community, from the healthcare community. At every single place I've been, they've told me two fundamental things. Thousands of people have told me two fundamental things. One, that this is a film they never knew they needed, but they've been waiting for their whole career. I mean, that for me, I'm just a storyteller, remember? And number two, they said this film will literally save lives. And that hearing those words still to this day can bring me to tears. But most importantly, we also heard from the parents who watch this, the families that watch this, teachers, principals, and especially the youth themselves. I can't tell you how many times a young person took me aside and said, "Thank you," because now I feel like I can talk about my own issues and I can speak out. I'm not very good at button pushing, am I? So, documentary films can have, they do have a mission. And it's more than just a job. Airing is only the start of our journey, which is why I'm here today and why I'll be someplace tomorrow. What did our film teach us? It taught us, I'm a filmmaker. It taught us that mental illness is real, it's here, and it's getting worse. And for an individual, especially a young person, it can be life-altering and devastating. We learned to talk about mental illness. You must understand the whole story. This is so important to me. A lot of people will say, it's too hard. I had to turn it off. I say most, it wasn't that many people. I'm exaggerating a little. But when I hear that, and they say, what do you think about that? I said, well, do you not want to understand the problem? Do you want to just turn it off and look away? To understand the whole journey, you need to follow them from the beginning to the end. That's where you learn the power that these young people have been given. They have been given a power to speak up and speak out and inform people. This sucks, but it gets better. This is my storm, but I'll get out of the storm. They are so passionate that by the end of every interview we did, they felt great. And you know what? When people watch the film, perhaps one of the most important lessons that we learned is relatability. Relatability. When you watch our film, you see yourself in it. I saw myself in it. perhaps for the first time in a way I never did. And since the day we finished making this film, I've been going to therapy, I've been on medication, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot. I'm not afraid to admit it. And we say in the film often the most difficult step is to simply start talking about it. That is the premise of our film. And what comes out of witnessing the journey is a realization. From the realization comes what I call ownership, that you have something that is not quite right in your life, which then brings empowerment. Wow, I have the power to do something. This isn't going to own me. From which comes release. I'm just like other people. Then that turns into empathy. When it turns to empathy, the inward goes outward. And all of a sudden, you are helping to destigmatize this illness that is so stigmatized in this country. And that is the power of this film. I'd like to end first by saying if you want to see or hear more about this, I'm doing a breakout session tomorrow at 2:30 where I intend to show 19 minutes of clips from the film. And then a Q&A or an informal chat about the film and its mission. But I'd like to end not with my words, but with the words of a young woman named Morgan, who is in our film. And I'd like to have them share that now. The video, please.
It's taken me a very, very long time to even speak openly about it. My roommates don't even know half of this stuff that I'm telling you guys now. And I'm nervous, like I'm kind of shaking inside to even talk about it. But I feel like if I don't talk about it now, then I'm wasting potential time where I could help somebody. And that's all I really want to do, is I just want, if I can even reach 2 people from everything I say or this story, then I did my part in this world.
So I lied. I do have one more thing to say. My wife knows I do this all the time. We're not stopping. This is only half the story. We have started, actually this week, a new project, a mini-series on adult mental health, dealing with adult mental health in the workplace. Thank you. And we're beginning that long process again to tell the story, but not just the story of following adults in our communities, but also an examination of their connection with the mental health care system and see their trials and tribulations, see their successes and their failures. So it's a bigger film with a bigger umbrella to talk about innovation, to talk about science, to talk about therapies, to talk about, like I said, mental health care in the workplace, at home. So we're doing that, and also we call it HIPS, hiding in plain sight, HIPS 1 and HIPS 2. HIPS 1, we are now in the process of breaking it down into teachable segments for curriculum for middle schools and high schools across the country. And yes, it's so great. Because we believe that if young people watch these segments, they're going to look inside themselves, perhaps engaging them in a way that they never have before. So again, I am so honored to be standing in front of all you, and please be out there, be agents of change. And I'd like to think that I'll be there right along with you. Thank you.